So what is ESG? Quite honestly, it's blackmail. In the case we're going to bring up today, it's corporate blackmail. And often there are videos out there that can give a better explanation than what I can put together. And so I'll always direct you in those paths rather than recreating or taking the content. In this case, there's a phenomenal video out that I will link in here for you. But it explains as a case study the Bud Light collapse, and it explains how ESG is what took it down. And it's a no-win game, because it might be something like you have a loan already, and if you don't play the game, the loan may be taken. If you don't pay the fee, your building may burn down. Or if you're out there applying for a loan, then unless you have a high enough ESG score, you're not going to qualify. Well, by virtue of the way the ESG is set up, if in fact you back down and ask for forgiveness, then your ESG score automatically goes down. Now, this might be likened something to a credit report or credit score that we've dealt with for years. But this gets much more subjective and much more dangerous very, very quickly. So I like to go to YouTube because they're quick resources that you can go to in order to validate the same. This is a statement from Superior Court of California, Santa Clara County, Judge Yvette Pennypacker. And the date on this, let's see if I can just highlight it for you. This was 1 month ago, and it's not showing the exact date, but 1 month ago. It says, it should appear clear to all, regardless of religious affiliation, that wearing a mask while worshiping one's God and communing with other congregants is a simple, unobtrusive, but giving way to protect others while still exercising your right to religious freedom. And unfortunately, it's highlighted here. You can't read the rest of it. But unfortunately, defendants repeatedly, and I don't know if it'll go a little. No, they've got a right over, so it will not as. So they're in a backhanded way saying, yeah, you have a right to freedom of speech in the First Amendment, as long as you do what we say. And we're seeing this on the attack of our Constitution on the good side. They're at least acknowledging we still have one. But on the bad side, they're just running right past it in most scenarios anyways. But I want to move forward because anything we talk about really needs to come down to you. How is this affecting you? And there's a Substack article that gives you a pretty good idea about how invasive this actually came. This is David Z. Weig, WEIG.substack.com. And he has an article posted called When a Renegade Church and a Zealous County, and it goes into the overview. Let me see if I can get the click here from where I took it. Here we go. And a Zealous County Health Department. But what's really interesting, when you get into that Substack, it goes over some things that are absolutely beyond the bottom, the boundaries of what is legal in our society. It explains how the county hired investigators to track individuals. License plates were collected. FBI files were created on parishioners. The attack was much more than just, hey, you didn't cover your face. As we've now learned the truth, right? Back then we knew the truth, but now the truth is actually coming out on a global level. And so this Substack article went pretty deep on the amount of taxpayer funds used to attack taxpayers. And we know long ago we lost our status of citizenship. We became known as taxpayers. So that honorary status of being born in this country has been gone for years. But as we're slowly being replaced, and that avalanche of being replaced is coming faster and faster, we really need to stand up and become more aware. So the reason that this creates a conflict with you within the ESG scale is something that we saw in Canada just over a year ago. A TD Bank froze 2 personal accounts, which money was paid to support the truckers. The bank also applied to the Ontario Superior Court of Justice to take the funds. The judges And the judicial system that is meant to follow rules and regulations are either not following them or setting new precedent, which new rules are being created along the way. And recall, GoFundMe even decided, hey, you can't spend the money that you want the way you want, that you took in for the reason you want. We're going to disperse it to organizations that we back. And at least that was held, but that was a big reminder that your money is just a button away. So what does ESG mean? As I ask different people on the street and I talk about this, many people don't know. And if they're educated about it, they'll usually say, well, you know what, doesn't really matter. It's the same concept we talked about, 15 years ago when we started discussing how pervasive the tracking is. And then as texting and email came on board and everybody had IP addresses for every IoT in their home, it became more and more pervasive. And individuals would say, but it doesn't matter, I'm not doing anything wrong. But they didn't understand that even if you're not doing anything wrong under the law was no longer the prevailing force. So for instance, if you get, let's say, wine every Sunday, that hits your score. And that information is sold to a variety of institutions that pay for it, namely your insurance company. And your insurance company also has access to your credit card records that show that, wait a minute, you're driving on these times that you're buying the bottles, you're buying it regularly. It may affect your health, it may affect your driving. We're just going to tackle those rates just a little bit. You may not know why, but all that information is not there to market to you, to support you and help you in your life. Companies are not spending $1 billion to help you. They're spending trillions of dollars to help themselves put their hands in your pockets. So what is ESG? ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance, and refers to the 3 key factors when measuring the sustainability and ethical impact of an investment in a business or company. But when we go back, this measurement is based on a yardstick that they created. What is sustainability? We've been lied to about global warming, global cooling, climate change. What is sustainability? It's an additional tax to take money out under the guise of doing something altruistic. Ethical impact. What is ethics? If ethics not based on the law, if ethics isn't voted on, if ethics isn't an agreed upon component of society, then who's measuring this? Let's see if we can bring this up a little bit more and highlight this section here. I want to get down into, so here we go. The 3 central factors: environmental criteria, which examines how a business performs as a steward of our natural environment; waste pollution, resource depletion, greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, climate change. All very noble concepts. Social criteria, which looks at how the company treats people and concentrates on. But somehow it went from how do you treat others just by going through your place and doing the best job you can in order to produce the best product and service, in order to stand out and gain market share and propel that business, to who are you bowing down to? Who's running the farm here? So they look at the DIE initiative. Actually, it's DEI, but it is DIE as we're seeing for different companies, including Bud Light or Anheuser-Busch. But diversity, equity, and inclusiveness isn't really all that inclusive. Employee relations and diversity, working conditions, including child labor and slavery, local communities, seeks explicitly to fund projects or institutions that will serve the poor and underserved communities globally. Health and safety and conflict, all altruistic. Maybe not. Governance. Remember, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. But Caesar has taken way more than what is Caesar's over the last few years. And by overtaxing those who are working and giving to those who are not working, you are destroying the underpinnings of a strong society. However, if you allow wealth to grow and the government keeps their hands out of your pockets, then community supports community. There's plenty to go around. Here they look at tax strategy, executive remuneration, donations and political lobbying, corruption and bribery, board diversity and structure. None of these are all too altruistic, are they? And yet they have become the foundation by which everything else is guided. So this is ESG, and essentially it's a measuring stick created by a specific group of people spread around the world and tested during the last years to see if you would in fact cover your face and sit in your home. It's a very, very dangerous game to play. And as we saw, it's blackmailing companies as individuals come out who truly epitomize the concept that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I believe there was a good heart here, a good honoring, a celebration meant to come out there based on poor education, propaganda, and manipulation. When I talked about Andrew yesterday and the CIA manipulation of perception via those who are monitoring perspectives, we can see this flow through society and how damaging it actually is. This isn't funny. This was very, very hurtful. It was very, very hurtful to many people involved. Many stepped aside and thought, whoa, this wasn't fair. And yet the ones who it really wasn't fair to were the ones who weren't even involved, but were just wearing a blue collar and serving their country every single day. And their business was eroded underneath them overnight. Now, this again has to circle back to you in order to make an impact. We talked about the Canadian truckers. We talked about different banks. Well, what about in the United States? The federalreserve.org news events press release came out, and again, so this would have been September 29th of 2022. The article really didn't pick up steam until about November, December time period. But the banks in the pilot exercise for ESG were Bank of America, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, and Wells Fargo. In incoming months, the board will provide additional details on how the exercise will be conducted and scenarios that will be used in the pilot. Well, what pilot is that? 6 of the largest banks pilot the climate scenario. Now, it wasn't just climate, it was the ESG approach to you and monitoring you. They have access to what comes into your accounts. They have access to what goes out of your accounts. They have access to how you spend your money, your credit card information. They have access to everything. So what they decided to do was give you a score. Decide based on your spending, your relations with others, and where you make your money, what your personal ESG score should be. Now, when banks roll this out, it's just not out of the kindness of their heart. And it isn't something that's just going to start and stop. This momentum is gaining speed. And one way to fight out, as always, is to vote with your dollar. When you stand up and you allow your own values, your own virtues, and your own voice to be heard, then we have a chance to move back forward again and raise our children into a land and a planet that we're proud of. But when we back down and we're blackmailed and we have our accounts threatened, and as it goes over in the movie, the line of credit, which is the backbone of most companies, threatened, what else do you have to stand on? So I really urge you to understand the concept of ESG and take a moment to educate yourself on how absolutely damaging this is as it weaves through the fabric of all the systems that we have. And we know that all systems around the world are starting to collapse. And it will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. But until we have that final straw, take a peek at this video. The Bud Light collapse, how ESG cost both Disney and Anheuser-Busch their customers. This came out just a few days ago on YouTube. You can go ahead and see the link here, and it's very easy to search it, so you can pull that up. It's only 20 minutes for you to watch, 22 minutes. Blessings to you in this day. Safety to all.